You didn't ignore the call by accident. You felt it. That quiet pull in your chest. That strange heaviness you couldn't explain. Because this wasn't just a message. This wasn't just a reminder. This was your father trying to reach you. Again. You've been busy. Busy surviving. Busy holding yourself together. Busy telling everyone you're fine when you're not. And still. He kept calling. Not with noise. Not with force. But with moments you couldn't shake. A memory that suddenly came back. A song that played at the wrong time. A feeling that whispered, "Come back." You thought it was coincidence. But it wasn't. Because your father does not call once and give up. He calls again. And again. And again. You didn't answer, not because you didn't care. But because you were tired. Tired of praying with no immediate answers. Tired of hoping and being disappointed. Tired of opening your heart only to feel it break again. So when he called, you stayed silent. And yet, he didn't stop. Your father saw the nights you cried without words. He saw the way you stared at the ceiling asking questions you were afraid to speak out loud. He saw how you smiled in front of people and collapsed when you were alone. And still, he called. Not to judge you. Not to shame you. But to remind you who you are. You thought distance meant rejection. You thought silence meant he had moved on. But a loving father never stops reaching for his child. Never. Even when you walked away. Even when you doubted. Even when you stopped believing that anything could change. He was still there. Waiting. Watching. Calling. Every time your heart felt restless for no reason, that was him. Every time you felt a sudden urge to pray but didn't know what to say, that was him. Every time you felt like something was missing, that was him. Because deep down, you weren't missing peace. You were missing connection. You didn't lose your way overnight. And he won't restore you in a moment of noise. That's why he calls softly. Patiently. Persistently. Again. And again. And again. You thought you had gone too far. You thought you had failed too many times. You thought your mistakes were louder than his love. But listen carefully. Your father's love does not expire. His grace does not run out. His patience does not break. You may have stopped calling his name. But he never stopped calling yours. Even now. As you read this. This is not random. This is another call. Not to pressure you. Not to rush you. But to remind you. You are still his child. You are still chosen. You are still loved. He knows you're afraid to hope again. He knows you don't trust easily anymore. He knows life has hardened you in ways you never expected. And that's exactly why he keeps calling. Because broken children need reminders. Because tired hearts need reassurance. Because lost souls need direction. And he would rather call 1,000 times than lose you once. You don't have to have perfect words. You don't have to fix yourself first. You don't have to pretend you're strong. All he's asking is this. Answer. Even if your voice shakes. Even if your faith feels small. Even if all you can say is, Father, I'm tired. That is enough. Because when a child finally answers the call, the father runs. He restores what you thought was gone forever. He heals what you thought could never be healed. He rebuilds what life tore apart. And no matter how many times you ignored the call before, This one still stands. You didn't answer the first time. And the second time, you hesitated. By the third time, you told yourself you were too far gone. But your father never counted how many times you ignored him. He only counted how much he loved you. While you were questioning your worth, he was guarding your life. While you were doubting your future, he was protecting it from breaking too early. You thought the closed doors were rejection. You thought the delays were punishment. But some doors close because your father refuses to let you walk into what would destroy you. There were moments you blamed him. Moments you whispered, if you really cared, you wouldn't let this happen. He heard that too. And he didn't leave. A father doesn't walk away when his child is confused. He stays closer. You didn't lose opportunities because you were unworthy. You lost them because the timing wasn't safe yet. Because you were still becoming the person who could carry what you asked for. That's why the calling didn't stop. Even when the blessings paused, the calling continued. Every time you felt like giving up. That quiet resistance inside you, that wasn't stubbornness. That was him holding you. You didn't break because he wouldn't let you. Even when you tried. You thought your strength was gone. But strength was never the point. Surrender was. You kept trying to survive alone. Thinking independence meant maturity. But children are not meant to carry life by themselves. That's why your soul felt heavy. That's why peace felt distant. That's why success didn't satisfy you. Because you were never created to walk without him. You may feel like you wasted years. Like you delayed your own destiny. But time does not limit your father. He can restore in moments what took life years to break. He can accelerate what was delayed. He can redeem what you thought was ruined. Your past does not scare him. Your doubts do not surprise him. Your wounds do not disqualify you. In fact, they explain why he kept calling. Because healed wounds become testimony. And restored lives become direction for others. You weren't ignored in your silence. You were being waited for. Waiting is not abandonment. Waiting is love that refuses to force. Even now, you might be listening with fear. Fear of trusting again. Fear of hoping again. Fear of being disappointed again. But hear this clearly. Your father is not calling you back to pain. He's calling you back to alignment. Back to who you were before life hardened you. Back to peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. Back to identity, not performance. You don't have to understand everything. You just have to come closer. Answering doesn't mean you'll never struggle again. It means you'll never struggle alone again. And that changes everything. When you finally respond, you won't hear anger. You won't hear accusation. You'll hear relief. Because the call was never about control. It was about connection. And the moment you answer, the distance disappears. Not because you ran fast enough, but because he never moved. If your heart feels exposed right now, if something inside you is stirring, if this feels personal, that's because it is. This is still the call. And he's still waiting. There comes a moment when the noise fades. When excuses run out. When pretending takes more energy than honesty. That moment is not weakness. That moment is awakening. You've spent so long carrying yourself that you forgot what it feels like to be carried. And your father saw that. He saw how life taught you to guard your heart. How disappointment trained you to expect less. How betrayal made you cautious with trust. So he didn't rush you. He didn't force the door open. He waited until your heart was tired of running. Because forced faith doesn't heal. Chosen faith does. You thought responding meant changing everything overnight. But your Father isn't asking for perfection. He's asking for presence. One honest moment. One real conversation. One step back toward Him. That's how restoration begins. Not with thunder. Not with instant miracles. But with peace returning quietly. You will notice it first in small ways. Your breathing will slow. Your thoughts will soften. Your heart will feel lighter. That's how you'll know you answered. Healing doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like finally resting without guilt. Like smiling without forcing it. Like sleeping without fear. You've been strong for too long. And strength without surrender becomes exhaustion. Your Father never asked you to be unbreakable. He asked you to be His. And when you belong, you don't have to prove. There are things coming into your life that will only make sense after this moment. Doors that stayed closed will open naturally. Clarity will replace confusion. Not because life becomes easy, but because direction replaces chaos. You didn't miss your destiny. You were being prepared for it. Some lessons could only be learned in isolation. Some strength could only be built in silence. Some faith could only be formed when nothing else worked. And now, you're ready. Ready to receive without fear. Ready to trust without needing control. Ready to walk without constantly looking back. Your story doesn't end in survival. It continues in purpose. What tried to break you will now serve you. What wounded you will now shape you. What delayed you will now accelerate you. Your Father wastes nothing. Not the tears. Not the waiting. Not the pain. All of it becomes part of the restoration. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not alone. You are being led. And the voice that kept calling you will now walk with you. Step by step. Day by day. You don't have to be fearless. You just have to be willing. Because when a child finally comes home, the father doesn't ask where they've been. He celebrates that they returned. If this message reached you, this is not the end of the calling. This is the beginning of the walk. And you will not walk it alone. Now the journey changes. Not because life suddenly becomes perfect, but because you are no longer walking without direction. When you answered the call, something shifted. Not outside first, but inside. You may not have noticed it immediately, but confusion began to lose its grip. Fear stopped speaking as loudly. Hope, quietly, returned. This is how destiny begins. Not with applause. With alignment. You were never meant to chase everything. You were meant to be led. And when the Father leads, even the long road has purpose. There will be moments ahead when old voices try to return. Voices that remind you of who you used to be. Voices that say, nothing really changed. But those voices no longer have authority. Because you are not who you were when the call first came. You are becoming. Your Father doesn't reveal the whole future at once. Because growth requires trust. He reveals just enough for the next step. And that step will feel lighter than the last. Opportunities will begin to align. People will cross your path at the right time. Doors will open without struggle. Not because you forced them, but because you are finally walking in rhythm. You once begged for answers. Now you will receive direction. You once asked for relief. Now you will walk in peace. And peace will guard you better than control ever did. There will still be challenges. But they will no longer define you. You will face them knowing you are supported, guided, and seen. Your purpose is not hidden. It was protected. Protected until you were ready to carry it without losing yourself. That's why the waiting was long. That's why the silence was deep. That's why the calling was repeated. Not to torment you, but to prepare you. You are stepping into a season where what once drained you will no longer have power over you. Where your past becomes wisdom, not weight. Where your story becomes light for someone still in the dark. You will speak differently now. Walk differently now. Choose differently now. Not because you are trying to be better, but because you are closer. And closeness changes everything. Your Father did not call you just to comfort you. He called you to position you. Position for impact. Position for growth. Position for fulfillment. You are not small. You were just hidden. And now, you are ready. Ready to move without fear. Ready to love without losing yourself. Ready to build without burning out. This is not a return to who you were. This is a rise into who you were always meant to become. And the same voice that called you back will walk ahead of you, clearing the way, strengthening your steps, reminding you, every time you forget, you are chosen. You are guided. You are never alone. This is not the end of the message.